degrees, and we're having 32 tomorrow here in the UK, and then we're going to hit pretty much 40 degrees the 2 days after that. So whether you've got animals like Roxy the fox over here, or our birds, Roxy the fox is cleared off, there she is, whether it's Roxy the fox or our birds of prey, your birds of prey, goodbye Roxy, the heat is a killer. Hello baby. The heat is a killer. Cold, you can't believe how animals can survive the cold that don't like the cold, and you can get them back round if something goes wrong. Heat, there's a cut-off point, everything dies. Hello darling. So whether it's mammals we've got here, my snakes at home, massive worry. You think, well, how bad can it be for snakes and reptiles? Kills them dead once it reaches sort of massive worry. You think, well, how bad can it be for snakes and reptiles? Kills them dead once it reaches sort of the mid-30s. So if you've got aviaries like these with, well, any kind of roof really, but any kind of solid roof, steel, felted, corrugated felt sort of material, onduline, they just absorb the heat like mad if the sun goes on them. So the quickest way to cool down aviaries like those, or indeed like these over here, is get a hose on there, hose them off, soak the roofs probably more than once a day. If it's getting so hot your birds are looking anything like distress. If they're panting, they're too hot. That's how they keep cool of course, but they're getting too hot. Steel roofs on here, these ones are shaded, no problem. But if you've got roofs catching the sun like these could be, hose them off. We've just hosed off Roxy the fox enclosure. It's the same thing as your birds. Soak those roofs down. Spray a little bit in the enclosures if you want to, but if you over soak the enclosures, you might end up really raising the humidity. Humidity and heat just makes things worse. Cooling off those roofs will make a big difference. Now, we don't want to spend money on water, do we? But come on, they're your animals, they're your birds. If your birds are tethered during the day and you're getting 35, 40 degree heat, those birds do not need to go out sunbathing at any point in that day. There's going to be plenty more sunny days that are tolerable. Zeus over here, he's in the shade. Put your birds out in the shade. Do not put them in the sun even first thing in the morning. There's no point. Keep them shaded. They'll get plenty of sunshine on other days. 30 to 40 degree heat in the UK, our birds are not used to it. My Spanish falconry friends, their birds are used to it. They're always shaded, they're netted, they've got all kinds of shade devices, and those birds are much more used to it now. It doesn't matter that your Harris sorts come from Arizona, they don't. Your Harris sorts comes from the UK. They've got all the same adaptations to keep cool as their Arizona counterparts, but they're not used to it here. Don't stress and distress them. Your birds are tethered, shade, all day long. If you're going to work and you're leaving your birds tethered, make damn sure you know that that shade's going to stay there all day long. You'll really distress or kill your birds if you leave them tethered in 40 degrees sunshine with nowhere to go. Massively important. Not just a bath, not just more shade by the way, not just a bath, but also fresh water. If you don't change your water regularly, half of these birds, they're not going to go in it. They're not going to go in what looks like dirty water unless they're desperate. You'll be amazed. Freshen that bath up, give it a clean, fill it back up with cool fresh water, and a lot of our birds and your birds will dive straight in the second that bath's changed. Also, of course, spray your birds. If your birds aren't bothered about the hose and they're used to that kind of thing, shut up. Goodness me. Get the hose, spray your birds. Now it's evening here, it's still hot. Here's a vulture, South America, just like our black kites, sunbathing. He's choosing to sunbathe. He's choosing to make, he can sit there in the shade. He's choosing to sunbathe. Every bird's got a choice maybe, I hope so. Some of our kites will lay belly down with their wings sprawled out, panting in the heat, lapping up the sunshine, but they've got the choice to change their minds. So think about whether your birds are tethered or in enclosures, and think about the design of that enclosure and where you're tethering those birds. Shade, fresh changed water, spray your birds down, spray down the sides of the enclosure that are catching the sun and those roofs. More than once a day if you can, certainly in the heat of the day, it will drop the temperature amazingly. So one thing, if your birds haven't been accustomed to being sprayed before, and they get stressed, you're probably going to make things worse, because obviously that bird getting stressed is going to overheat it more than anything else. So obviously, if your birds aren't accustomed to being showered, pop the hood on them, and that way they're not going to get stressed, because they don't really know what's going on. And obviously that's the whole point of hooding a bird, isn't it? To good animal welfare for many stressful situations. But of course, try not to get the hood wet like I've just done. They do sometimes change shape, they get too wet. But you can hood your bird and hose him off. But hopefully, like Wurzel here, you can actually not have him hooded, because you've got your bird accustomed to being sprayed by the hose anyway. And give him a really good soaking. Obviously, if it's a well-weathered bird, it's going to be very, very waterproof. Just try and get under the wings and around the feet. And give your bird a good soaking. And if you can really get him wet, as that evaporates, just like you sweating, that'll really give him a reprieve and a cool down. Because as much as we like to think our birds are clever, they don't always go in the bath when it's really hot. So something else that's a really good idea is to freeze some Coke bottles of water, ice cream tubs full of water, freeze those, or get yourself some ice packs. Put those as perches on your bird's shelf perches in their free lofts, or next to their perches if they're tethered. Birds lose their heat by panting like dogs through the soles of their feet, and even harrisocks even have those bare patches on their face, which help to keep them cool in the sort of temperatures they're designed for in the wild. They will actually choose very often to jump onto these perches made of ice, and it will cool them down, even if they're just snuggling next to them. It's all helping to cool them down. But just basic things: keep the aviary roost cool, keep your birds in the shade all day. Ice packs really help. Some of the birds love them. Certainly the gerfil seem to instinctively know to jump and perch on them. Don't fly your birds unless you have to. If you do, early and late, and try and keep them in a woodland or something. But really, unless you really have to fly your birds, don't fly them. I'm going to fly 2 birds today. It's not 40 degrees. We're flying no birds in the next 2 days of 40-degree heat. We've cancelled all of our work. Today it's a lot cooler, but it's still going to be around 30, which is still silly for the UK. And I'm going to fly 2 birds really, really briefly today. And that's it. Don't fly your birds unless you have to. Just think about how you feel. I'm in the shade, water sound behind me. I already feel so much cooler relaxing here than working out in the sun. Your birds are just the same. Look after them. Yes, some of those birds can tolerate extreme heat, but it doesn't mean they're not stressed or unhappy doing that. They don't want to be panting all day long. Follow some of the makeshift tips in this video. It will help your birds no end. And of course, with the way the climate is changing, whether you like it or not, hotter summers are coming. Some of these things we can put in place permanently, can't we? So we talked about hosing off the roofs of your indoor, rather of your free lofts and your mews. Makes a massive difference. Soak that roof in hose water. That evaporation will cool it off no end. But of course, what we could do is bolt a length of hose to the highest point of the roof, perforate it with a drill, really small holes, and put a quick release hose connector on the end. So in future, we can just plug the hose in and go and have a cup of tea while it cools it down for us. Enjoy the video. Not a video I was expecting to put out, but I think if it helps one person's birds, well worth putting out this evening if you're watching it kind of live or as it's come out today, because the next 2 days in the UK are going to be ridiculous for here. We cannot cope. If there's a snowflake, we cannot cope. If it's 40 degrees, we cannot cope. All the other countries that have this weather cope just fine. We're not used to it. Our birds are not used to it. If you've got any really good sort of cooling tips that you've installed as part of your aviary designs, or just something you do to keep your birds cool, or if you are from hot parts of America or Europe, what do you do to help keep your birds cool if they're not in this video? Comment below, help us all out. Like and subscribe. See you in the next video.